Vanakkam. Welcome to this course on classics in neuroscience. We have been looking at classic Nobel Prize winning works, and in this series we are looking at the classic Nobel Prize winning works and contributions of Charles Sherrington. In this video, we will summarize the contributions that led to the award of Nobel Prize to Charles Sherrington, essentially his contributions in reflexes and reciprocal inhibition. We have stated this many times. We already stated this 2 or 3 times. So, if I say something 3 times, then that means it is important. And his contribution in terms of the classic textbook integrative action of the nervous system and other contributions and legacy. So, Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 1932 was awarded for his discoveries and the function of neurons, reflex arcs and synapses to Charles Sherrington, and it was shared with Edgar Adrian, who was also working in the same field on pretty much the same topic, about whose work we will discuss in future videos. So, what are the key discoveries that led to the award of the Nobel Prize? Essentially, Sherrington was the first to provide evidence to support the existence of synapses or gaps between neurons and their role in nerve communication, neuronal communication. Essentially, he defined synapse as this nexus, specialized region between neurons. He discovered the reciprocal inhibition, suggesting that when a muscle is contracting, its antagonist relaxes, explaining one method by which muscles and movements are coordinated. One feature that is responsible for smooth execution of movements. He studied reflexes and integration of sensory motor signals on the nervous system. So, essentially he suggested how multiple neuronal inputs converge onto the motor unit and how the motor neuron, in this case the alpha motor neuron, essentially acts to synthesize information coming in from both the excitatory and the inhibitory. It synthesizes that information, both excitatory and inhibitory information, and integrates it to come to a conclusion of what to do, what is the next action, to decide whether to command the muscles to move or not move. Remember that these are neurons that are located in the spinal cord. These are motor neurons, that means that they are located in the ventral horn of the spinal cord. Of course, we have seen about his major contribution in the form of this book. We have dedicated an entire video to this. This is the integrative action of the nervous system that was published in 1906 based on the Silliman lectures that he gave. Essentially, he suggested that the nervous system essentially is an integrated whole, and both the brain and the spinal cord work together to coordinate movement, suggesting the central nature of spinal cord. So, spinal cord and brain form the central nervous systems, and reflexes as building blocks of movement behavior. So, one reflex acts as the stimulus for the next reflex, which acts as a stimulus for the next reflex, which is how we make movement, and we essentially make this coda or this dance of movements. So, simple reflexes combine to produce relatively complex behaviors, complex movement patterns that appear as very complex can still be explained by several units of behavior, which Sherrington called as the reflex arc, that is that you can essentially explain a complex behavior using several reflex arcs. Of course, this view has limited practical consequence or application in today's world, because now we know it is a lot more complicated than that, but still for that age it was a revolutionary insight. And synaptic control of nerve signals, where Sherrington suggested that the synapse is the site where neuronal impulses are controlled. Essentially, that is the place where there is synthesis of neuronal impulses that happens. In later years, Sherrington became President of the Royal Society, which is a very honorable position, and continued to work on motor control, neurophysiology, synaptic function, neural plasticity. One of his major contributions was as a teacher and as a mentor. He was a phenomenal humanist. Just why he was called as a humanist, Charles Sherrington. He mentored many extraordinary neuroscientists, including John Eccles. He also mentored the other famous neuroscientist, Derek Denny Brown. He was also interested in philosophy. We discussed part of it in a previous video. He wrote philosophical essays on science, the nature of human consciousness, and is the mind or consciousness entirely material? Can brain processes explain all the features of consciousness, for example, are all philosophical questions that he also attempted to approach and attack. He believed that there was a deep, profound connection between biology, thought and behavior. For us movement scientists, this connection can be studied using movements, which are essentially manifestations of these synthesis. So, Sherrington is rightfully called as the father of modern neurophysiology, because even today the methods that he innovated are still being used to study in classic neurophysiological studies. That is delays, defining the number of synapses using the synaptic delays, for example, are all classical approaches to neurophysiology that was first practically invented by Charles Sherrington, still being used. So, defined how neurons communicate and how reflexes are integrated, that is, the reflexes continue to work together to produce complex behaviors. Essentially, his work influenced not just neurophysiology but medicine, the broad field of medicine, neuroscience, psychology, even engineering for that matter. Recall how he had some excellent methods and approaches to measure. It's one of his first videos, one of the first videos we saw was on the instruments that he used to measure that. His studies and reflex and motor control are still relevant in medicine. For example, his discoveries still form the basis for the neuroplasticity based approach to neurorehabilitation in stroke and in spinal cord injury. It helps understand the pathophysiology of neuromotor disorders like Parkinson's disease and many other neuromotor disorders, and his approach helps us develop modern brain computer interfaces. His work on synapses essentially informed in a very big way the modern research in the field of neurotransmitters that led to the discovery of many crucial neurotransmitters: serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, and several others, essential for all the treatments of diseases of the brain. For example, even depression, anxiety, neurological disorders, all these. Some more interesting facts about Sherrington. He was not just a brilliant scientist, he was also an excellent poet and a philosopher, which is why his book, The Integrative Action of the Nervous System, would have been written in a poetic style. He served as a war doctor during World War I. He was knighted in 1922 for his contributions to science. He wrote a lot, not just about science, but also about philosophy and the meaning of life. It's very deeply philosophical. So, with this, we come to the end of this video. In this video, we looked at, or we summarized, the major contributions by Charles Sherrington that led to the award of the Nobel Prize 1932 in Physiology and Medicine is essentially his work on reflexes, reciprocal inhibition, and his contributions in terms of the book Integrative Action of the Nervous System, his contributions as a mentor, teacher, and a worthy, brilliant humanist, and his other contributions and legacy. With this, we end this video. With this, we also end this series of videos on Charles Sherrington. We will continue our discussion on other Nobel Prize winning scientists, namely Edgar Adrian and Hodgkin and Huxley, in this week's video, in this week's content. Thank you very much for your attention.